Released in 2010, Dead Rising 2 builds upon the success of the original Dead Rising by expanding its zombie paradise action with a brand new setting, introducing an all new cast of characters while retaining the intense, challenging, time-sensitive gameplay fans loved. Set in the Vegas-inspired Fortune City, the story centers on Chuck Green, a motocross champion who must fight to stay alive, clear his name, and save his daughter after a massive outbreak. In addition to all the signature features, Dead Rising 2 also adds a 2-player co-op mode as well as creative weapon crafting, and was the first entry to be released on multiple platforms on release, no longer being exclusive to the Xbox 360. Here, we'll take a look at the covers released in Europe, North America, and Japan. Europe and North America share the Western box art, which features our new protagonist, former motocross champion Chuck Green, now star of the Terror is Reality game show in Fortune City. Surrounded by a massive horde of the undead, he's armed with a brutal-looking makeshift weapon, ready to defend himself and get out of there alive. It's an interesting cover to look at because it's a little conflicting in its themes. Here you have the horror of the zombie infection, with gruesome imagery centering on one man covered in blood, looking as if he's about to be devoured by the sheer number of them. But then you have him wielding a ridiculously cool looking weapon, which is simply 2 chainsaws duct taped to a boating paddle, while being observed by a man wearing a helmet that looks similar to a very happy Lego man, donning a tuxedo and being completely calm about the events surrounding him. It's this kind of graphic that sums up the game really well. A dark and gritty horror story that has crazy and out there moments that make slaughtering the undead a blast. For this entry, we no longer have Frank West, the protagonist of the original game, and is instead replaced with Chuck Green, but in a position similar to the North American cover's Frank, in their respective location, surrounded by zombies, and utilising a weapon to get out of there. Here we see Chuck wearing his iconic yellow racing jacket with the words EGIAC Racing on the front. This is actually a reverse spelling of the creator of the Dead Rising series' first name, Keiji Inafune. The paddle chainsaws that are being wielded are a fun indication of the new combo weapon system that was developed for this game, where you're able to combine certain items together to create makeshift weapons. Some are fairly plain, such as a baseball bat with nails in it, a Molotov cocktail, or a shotgun with a pitchfork attached, to more intricate and creative weapons like water guns that shoot fire, flashlights that become laser swords, or teddy bears in wheelchairs that can automatically kill zombies with heavy machine guns. There was a lot of fun and love put into this system, so it's no surprise they wanted to advertise that on the cover. The other new and large addition to the sequel was the ability to play through the game with a friend in co-op mode, whereby one person hosts and the other could drop in, going round the Las Vegas-styled world, slaughtering the undead in grisly fun ways, trying on all the outfits, collecting as much money as you can, and fighting the psychopaths. Here we see the second player who was dropped in a tuxedo and wearing a mask of Servbot, a character from the Mega Man series, also developed by Capcom. It makes a lot of sense that he's wearing something to cover his face, not only because it shows the humour and silliness of the game, but because when a friend drops in, they are also Chuck Green. Having 2 Chucks on the front wouldn't make much sense at all, so this was the next best thing, and it works really well. It's funny that the co-op function is naturally advertised on the back of the box too, in both the English and Japanese versions, but each time the second player's face is also obscured, so we still don't see that it's just 2 Chuck Greens. Even though it's pretty clear that this is meant to be a representative of the second player, it could also be a reference to the fact that you can find Servbot masks around the world and stick them on zombies' heads. Nothing sticks out more than a giant yellow smiling face shambling amongst the crowd of the undead. A final point to make about the second player, I can't help but think that he's a little less detailed in his surroundings when they look like high quality renders. Here it seems as though he was photoshopped from an in-game screenshot. It still looks good, but definitely looks a little out of place quality wise. As is iconic of this series, there are a lot of zombies shown on screen that really make the outbreak feel that much larger and more dangerous. On the cover here, we see a lot of the undead, and they're all pretty varied and unique, so that's some nice detailing. We can see that they're inside the Fortune City arena by the stands, the spotlights, and the ticker banners that read "Terror is Reality, place your bets." There are some numbers too. I think they read 016118055, but I'm not entirely sure what they mean. I'm not clued in on how you actually make bets in places like these, so I can only assume it's some kind of number you would call to do it, but if anybody could leave a comment and let me know, that would be great. It seems like they're in the actual arena play area, but the height is throwing me off a little. The banners and seating seem to be in the upper audience area, but the play area is like a deep pool, so Chuck and the zombies being at this height doesn't seem right unless it's some kind of cover over the arena when it's not in use. Given that we can't go to this area unless it's part of the beginning of the game or when we play the online Terror is Reality minigames, it may be a possibility that there could be a cover. Or it's just the artist trying to make a cool image and I'm overthinking it a little. But saying that, Chuck never actually appears in the arena like this. When he's performing, he wears his all-yellow riding outfit complete with helmet. Like I said before, we aren't able to go to this area past the beginning, so him being here wielding a paddle saw is impossible to do so in-game. The title design is heavily inspired from the first entry in the Dead Rising series, but with some fun thematic changes. Here it's presented like a neon sign, a very common sight on the strip and all around Fortune City. It still keeps the gradient, but instead of it being a grim bluey green to white, it goes from blue to white to red. This could indicate the zombie-centric death and blood theme of the series, or it could be a nod to the American flag due to its themes of big pharma, land of opportunity, corporate greed and mass consumption. There are some blood splats towards the end of the title like the original along with the addition of the number 2, and the same zombie acting as the space in the letter D. The EU/NA version also doesn't have the reflection underneath that the logo had before in the first entry. The Japanese cover gives us something quite different, a more poignant and less one-man army feeling. Instead, the designers decided to go for an emotional angle. Here we see Chuck Green holding his daughter Katie as they're surrounded by the oncoming horde of zombies, while caught out in the middle of Fortune City. With only one hand free, his makeshift spiked bat is his reliable weapon to use on the mass of the undead. This one is actually a very weird one for me. It's somewhat hard to put into words as it's never happened to me before, where a box art makes me fairly uncomfortable that I actually find it somewhat hard to look at. And that is seeing Katie like this. A terrified little girl of only 7 years old, going through so much in the midst of this zombie outbreak. She'd already lost her mother years prior in Las Vegas and gotten bitten and subsequently infected. Now the horror's happening all over again in Fortune City, and the pain and fear shown on her face looks so real. Like I said, I never really have this feeling, but I suppose there aren't many covers out there that show children in pain and immense fear. It was an interesting choice to put this on the cover as it does a lot for the story and the attachments to the characters. The first game either showed simply zombies in the Willamette Mall, or Frank West looking like some kind of action hero. But this shows a relationship and connection to the characters straight off the bat. No pun intended. Chuck is doing all he can to protect his little daughter. He's out there holding her close, her holding onto him too, trying to fend off the surrounding zombies and make his escape. There's fear and desperation on his face too, knowing that if he fails, then the most important person in the world to him will definitely die. The emotional importance of this cover really hits hard, and it's a very different idea to go for, especially when comparing it to the action-styled, brutal, and slightly comedic cover of the Western release. With the spiked bat prominently displayed and aimed towards the viewer, it's a nice indication of the new combo weapon system that's been added. A simple weapon, but always a fan favourite among the lovers of the zombie genre. It's sturdy, effective, reliable, does a lot of damage, and can be made pretty easily. It's also not as outlandish a weapon to show on the cover like the chainsaw paddle, so it allows the emotion of the cover to remain grounded and seem a little more real. Having a ridiculously cool weapon in its place would take away the emotional aspect and make the zombies seem like they're hardly a threat. We can see where they are at the time from the building behind them, the entrance to the Fortune City Arena, the place where Chuck reluctantly joins in on the entertainment of slaughtering the undead for a bloodthirsty audience in Terror is Reality. We can also slightly see the globe that's present there too for Fortune City. The zombies surrounding the image give us another great sense of dread and claustrophobia. These grotesque and deadly beings are only after you to eat your flesh, and they'll stop at nothing to get it, with their mindless brains only focused on one thing. They don't care how much they get beaten or pulverized, as long as they're alive, they're coming for you. It's a nice touch that Chuck and Katie wear bright, vibrant colours in their clothing and their hair, so that they stand out very well against the blues, greys and deep reds of the rotting undead. It's funny that Fortune City is supposed to be the next Las Vegas, full of colour, neon signs, vibrancy and life, yet it looks to be within the same colour palette as the zombies. Similar to the Western cover, in the game these two characters are outside the Fortune City arena, but not exactly like this. At that point, the outbreak had basically just started, so they were caught off guard and looking for a way out. Chuck had access to a baseball bat that he could use until he found Katie, but he wasn't able to put nails through it yet. Also, for the short period in which you do escort Katie, you hold her with both hands and are only able to kick zombies, not use weapons. I know, it's purely for an interesting looking art piece, but I thought it interesting to mention it anyway. The logo used is the same one for the Western release, but has the original reflection underneath, giving a somewhat 3D look. The label in the top left says that this game contains explicit content. The one on the top right calls this Zombie Paradise Action, which again I think is a fantastic label to put in the series, and the writing on the bottom is a direct translation of the title, Dedo Raijingu Tsu. Finally, this game was given a 0Z rating, meaning it's only available to people 18 and over. The Dead Rising 2 Zombrex Edition is a special version of the game that was only released in North America and PAL regions, one of them being Europe. It unfortunately didn't release in Japan, but I was unable to find any information as to why. Here we have a grey steel case patterned to look like a metal pill case with a clear transparent cover designed to look like something straight out of a pharmaceutical company. On the front we can see the word Zombrex, which is the in-game injectable antidote that people take to temporarily stop the virus from taking over them. It's hard to see this from the picture, but the writing underneath reads, non-emergency or daily use, 200mg doses, making it look more officially medical. Another nice detail is a subtle one at the bottom where it keeps within its theme by saying that it is sponsored by Capcom. Even though it wasn't part of the cover itself exactly, I thought it good to mention that this version also came with a special pen that was designed to look like a Zombrex syringe, which I thought was such a cool idea. Something that has remained a consistency throughout each of the covers, including ones we've seen so far from Dead Rising 1, is that even though the psycho boss fights are something that the series is known and loved for, not one of them has any sort of reference to them as of yet. We've seen protagonists and zombies, but not a single human antagonist. Once again, the great part about the artist choices allows us to have different pieces of work to admire. The European/North American one lets us have fun, the Japanese one grounds us to the in-game reality, and the Zombrex edition gives us that little bit extra with having something within the game created for real life, for that immersion and joy of the product. My personal favourite will have to be the Japanese cover just because it genuinely moved me, even if I find it to be quite an uncomfortable sight. While these games are regarded for being goofy and over the top, there are some great emotional and dramatic stories within that really do make you root for the heroes and want them to get out alive. What do you think of them, and which one is your favourite? Let me know. Now, quickly before we finish, I want to end this video with something a little bit different. Dead Rising 2 had 2 story content DLCs post-launch, which sadly to this day have remained Xbox digital exclusives. I always thought it was such a shame that they never ported them with the releases on PS3, PS4 and PC, and given that they're digital only, I thought I would make up some covers so that way I can have them on my shelf alongside my physical copy of Dead Rising 2 on Xbox. So, here they are. The images were taken from online sources of the official artworks to do with the DLCs, and I changed the colours a little and added the logo on top. I also added information and images to the back and kept it looking like official releases. If you would like these to print off yourself, then there will be a link in the description of where you can find them. Thanks for watching.